Hello, and welcome back to Practically Political. I'm Dave Spencer. It's great to have you with us.
And I'm Carrie Sheffield. Wow. What
I
a
tell
week.
you, wow, Carrie, it's right. It's only 10 days, and my gosh, chaos is back. So I have to start by asking you, what do you think of the first 10 days? Do you agree with his decision to pardon even the people that brutalized police officers? What do you say for the first 10 days of Trump 2.0?
Overall, I think it's fantastic. I think he's doing exactly what he said he would do, which is rare for a politician. Promises made, promises kept. And, I used to work for America First Policy Institute that was founded by Brooke Rollins. And one of the things that we were doing was creating the executive orders that he's now signing into law. So it's exciting to see something that, being gone for 4 years, the team, I was played a very small role at AFPI. So it's a kudos to Brooke and all of her visionary work to get these executive orders so quickly off the bat. So everything from protecting women's sports to, rolling back regulatory red tape. So I was on MSNBC talking
All
about.
right. Could you answer the question about the pardons, though? That's my question. Do you think he was right to pardon the people that brutalized police officers? And by the way, I'll have to say, before you answer that, yes, the issue with Donald Trump was never the energy. It was the execution. And I'm happy to say, for America's benefit, that even though they've had 4 years to sharpen their game, and they did get all these executive orders out where they, on his first day in office last time, I think he issued one, and this day he issued 70 or whatever the hell it was. But the point is, the execution is still shambolic, which thank God, because the American people benefit from this stuff not going through. But we will see. But should he have pardoned the violent offenders, even though J.D. Vance said, of course, you shouldn't pardon people that attack police officers. And Lindsey Graham said, this would destroy Donald Trump if he pardons the people that attack police. Should he have?
Well, he did not pardon everybody, as I understand it. And as I understand it, based on what Trump has said, and I would
yes or no? You're not answering the question.
Well, Dave, I would need to look at each specific case.
Oh, for crying out loud! I can run down a list of people. In fact, one of the people that he pardoned was killed in Indiana, hardly a blue state, at a traffic stop recently. These are people, the Proud Boys. It basically sends a message to the American people. Hey, don't worry. I got your back. You can break the law. You can do it whatever you want. Whoever that Chewbacca character was said after he was, I forget his name, after he was pardoned, I'm going to go buy some effing guns. So there was a few cases that were commuted, but he said he wouldn't pardon violent offenders. And he did. And it's a terrible message. So I guess you're not going to answer that question. What about the nominees? Are you still supporting all of them? Unfortunately, and I just want to say one thing too, to the invertebrate Senate to approve Pete Hegseth. And I want to point out 3 senators particularly: David McCormick, who went to West Point, who was just elected to a 6-year term, has nothing to lose. Shame on you. Joni Ernst, who's not only a veteran but a victim of sexual assault, who raised legitimate concerns, and then they threatened her with a primary challenge, and she whimpered off, is despicable. Show some honor. And Tom Tillis, who talked about, I can't get anyone to back up these claims. Well, first, 2 things, Senator. I realize no one's ever accused you of being the smartest guy in the room, but the reason that a lot of these things couldn't be backed up was because there were NDAs. Nobody would talk. But listen to what Pete Hegseth's own mother said. Listen to some of the women that accused him. And secondly, that's not even the issue. The issue is whether he's qualified. He's grossly unqualified, comically unprepared, but yet you guys went along with it. So I'm hoping you'll show some spine. What about the last 3? Do you support Tulsi Gabbard? Do you support Kash Patel? Do you support RFK? Would you vote for all 3 of those, Carrie?
Me personally? Yes, I would.
Would you have voted for Matt Gaetz? Would you have voted for Matt Gaetz?
I think Pam Bondi is a major upgrade. So
But that's not the question. Would you have voted for him if he'd been the nominee?
He's a different case. I mean, his own peers.
Okay, so yes, because you're not going to answer the question. All right.
Yeah.
See, this is what I'm saying.
When
When do you
you're not
stand
even
up?
allowing me to say anything. So I can talk about Pete Hegseth. So I have personally known Pete Hegseth personally. I went to Harvard with him. I was his orientation leader. I've known him since 2009. And even he has said he doesn't agree, and he was not his best life all the time. But when you look at, and he has said he's made mistakes. He hasn't done, the perfect life. But I think what the Democrats were distracted because you said he wasn't qualified, but then the Democrats didn't even talk about that really. I think they were so distracted by these claims that, yes, I agree with that, Senator, they were not verified. So, for example, the ex-sister-in-law, who is the divorcee of his brother, who he's not even related to anymore, put words in the mouth of Pete's ex-wife, which the ex-wife disavowed. That's that would be laughed out of court.
You are picking one isolated incident.
Okay.
The bottom line is his own mother called him a predator. Now, and put aside the fact he still hasn't said whether or not he drinks. I mean, the stories of him passed out. I mean, as I said, I'm a recovered alcoholic. And the fact that if someone is an alcoholic, that they'll tell you that they're not going to drink. Oh, don't worry. If I get this job or if you do this for me, I'm not going to drink. That's laughable. That's one thing that an addict or an alcoholic can't do is say no. And the third thing is that's just the issue of personal behavior, which is bad enough. But the main issue is competence. He is grossly unprepared. He is grossly incompetent, and or grossly comically unsuited for this job. And Kash Patel, do you remember Bill Barr?
Yes.
Well, Bill Barr, I have my issues with him in terms of being a Trump loyalist, but he was certainly that knew the law. And you may recall that in the Trump first administration, Donald Trump tried to appoint Kash Patel as assistant FBI director. And do you remember what Bill Barr's response was? Well, allow me to refresh your memory. He said, "Over my dead body, this is the most unqualified person perhaps ever." And to go in and let's go down the list. I mean, it's too long to even list. He claimed that he was responsible for involved in the Benghazi hearings. He wasn't. He said he was the one who gave the order to take out al-Baghdadi, the ISIS leader. He wasn't. He said that we had cleared airspace permission from an ally when we hadn't. He said that he sprung the leak about hostages being freed before they had released American soil, which is like a number one. The list goes on and on. Not to mention, he said, well, let's close the FBI headquarters and have turn it into a museum for the deep state. Have you ever heard of the word kakistocracy? It's my favorite word. Have you ever heard of that word, Carrie?
No,
it's a great word. It means government by the worst men. And that's exactly what we have here. This is a clown show. And I just want to say to the American people, I know it's frustrating for those of us who didn't vote for Trump, but already his approval rating is underwater. The last I saw, he's under 50% approve already, which is the worst approval rating, I think, for any new president. And secondly, every president gets a little bit of a honeymoon. All this incompetence, they said they're going to deport criminals, but they're deporting veterans, and they're doing it on these military planes when they said that they want to save money, and it costs like an extra $1 million or $800,000 per flight to fly these empty planes because it's a good photo op. So all this clown show stuff is going to go on for a while, but be patient, and eventually it's very unpopular. And let me say something to Democrats also. You're being wimpy as usual. It's time to be an opposition party. Yes, you lost the battle on DEI. You lost the battle on immigration, which frankly you deserve to lose. But you're still winning in the overall war in terms of what people want. Your policies are still more popular. If you do a blind poll of policies and you don't say which party they are, by 55 to 45, Americans prefer Democratic policies. So be an opposition party, be patient, your chance will come, because this man is still as incompetent as ever. And the only other thing I want to say is this has been all over the news. You've probably heard it, but the BRICS countries. Have you heard of that, Carrie?
Yeah, Brazil, Russia, India, China.
And do you know what the S stands for? BRICS.
Remind me.
Well, our president thinks that it stands for Spain. So he said, we're gonna put on 100% tariffs on Spain because they're aligning with those awful countries, and we're not going to handle it. The S actually stands for South Africa, Mr. President. And this is the reason that the whole world is laughing at you and laughing at us. Okay, this is something, if you're in 8th grade, fine, but this is an embarrassment. I could give a whole list of stuff. Greenland is yet another one. He's actually sent one of his cretinous sons to Greenland, right? And he's like, oh, everyone in Greenland wants to be part of the U.S. I think it was Donald Jr. 100%. We talked to everyone. Well, I've seen 2 surveys about what percentage of people from Greenland want to join the U.S. What do you think the number is? What do you think the 2 numbers I've seen? I'll give you a hint. They're not 100%. 9% and 6%. That's what percentage. But this is the kind of clownish stuff. It's like it goes back to when he took Putin aside over his own intelligence agencies. This is cringeworthy for any American,
Dave,
but not the president of the United States.
Dave, am I allowed to say?
So anyway, I'm done. So now the floor is all yours. Thank you for allowing me to be very cathartic here. The floor is yours for as long as you want it.
Good. I hope that was cathartic for you, because I did not get to respond to anything. You threw a lot of stuff against the wall, Dave. I think that's the longest soliloquy I've ever heard you do.
Thank you. I actually rehearsed it. I was very pleased with it.
As a former oboist, I am impressed by your lung capacity.
Go ahead.
Look, Dave, if you think he's so incompetent, then isn't that what you would want, as far as him not being able to do things that you don't like?
Yes,
I think that
absolutely. That's the point I just made.
Well, so then I don't think you should be so upset.
I'm not upset. I'm embarrassed.
Well, here's the thing. I think he's doing a wonderful job. I mean,
of course you do.
He's only human, so it's not really perfect. You had some confusion with that OMB memo that got ahead of its skis, but that was something that OMB had to clean up. But other than that, the fact that I think it's interesting, that was pretty much the only thing that's been smacked down in the courts. All of the others have.
Oh, really? How about the 14th Amendment? How about him trying to end birthright citizenship? That was smacked down so quickly. What do you think of that? Should we do that?
He's made an interesting point about that, which is, if you look at the language of the 14th Amendment and its context of why it was created, it was meant to apply to slaves or newly freed people who had been enslaved. And it was about their children. That's who they were talking about. It was not meant to be applied to illegal criminals who crossed the border.
But it's in the Constitution. I don't agree with it. I mean, here, let me ask you this, okay?
But when you look at the language, it says, or subject to the jurisdiction thereof.
Yes, but still, there's not a judge, and the Supreme Court, I can promise you, it'll be 9-0 if it ever gets there, even this Supreme Court. I don't agree with it, by the way, and let me just say this. I don't like the fact that people come across the border and have so-called anchor babies. I would like to change it, but it's in the Constitution. You can't just decide. Okay, well, I'll tell you what's more superannuated is the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment was created because people were afraid of militias and people trying to overthrow their own government. You can make a much better argument that no longer applies. So what if Joe Biden just said, the Second Amendment, it's not really relevant anymore, so I'm just going to issue an executive order to get rid of it. Do you think any conservatives would have a reaction to that? Yes, intent, I agree with you, but the Constitution is the law. You just can't change the law. It's like firing these inspectors general, which, by the way, are people that are supposed to be fighting fraud and abuse and waste, which is what he's supposed to be. He says he wants to drain the swamp. Well, he's swamped the drain is what he's done already. But literally,
I mean, clearly they haven't been doing a good job if we're having such massive
It's oversight. He doesn't want any oversight.
Up to 10% of Medicare payments are fraud, which is hundreds of billions of dollars a year. That's insane. That should not be happening. I mean, and there are so many programs. I think.
So how does firing the inspectors general solve that problem?
Again, I'd have to look at the specific cases, but if the fact is that they have not been able to, they're not having impact, they're not doing their job. If we're not having the results, I mean, my guess is the reason why they were let go is because they were partisan actors. That's probably what it was.
Oversight. He doesn't want oversight. That is the reason. But anyway.
No, but look. All right, I'll try to address some of your points because you covered a lot of ground, Dave.
Sure.
But big picture, again, he's doing what the people wanted, and when you look at the specific issues, he's doing what people want. The issues that the people voted him in for, things that on the tariff. I don't support tariffs for their own sake, but he's using them as a tool. He's using them as a negotiating tactic. So if another country is not allowing our goods in or certain types of our goods in, then he's saying, well, then I'll put a tariff on. It's not for its own sake. It's for basically a tit for tat. And so I think the big picture of America first is part of why he is popular. He won the popular vote. And I'd have to look at the language that you're talking about of the specific poll, because polling is notoriously biased. And when I've seen polling that show like his net positive on his actions on immigration up by 18 points. So it can all be in the framing and the language when you're talking about polling. But overall, the mood of the country, Gallup, which I think we can agree is one of the most solid pollster outfits, they found this is the highest level they've ever recorded of people saying that illegal immigration is a national security threat. And so there's something different. We've reached a cultural watershed that is part of why the Democrats actually know they can't mount much of an opposition, because the people aren't behind them. And you're right on the DEI stuff. The reason why the Democrats can't mount opposition is because the people don't want that. They don't want a racist society. They want a race-blind society. They want a merit-based society. And Trump's bringing
a merit-based society, kind of like the tech oligarchy that Trump is setting up. Did you hear the latest one? That he sued Mark Zuckerberg. I mean, you just can't make this stuff up. He sued Mark Zuckerberg because he was deplatformed. Now, there's not a court in not just the country, but even in probably some third world, like authoritarian countries, that would laugh that out of court. But Mark Zuckerberg wants to be one of the boys. So he gave a $25 million fine, 22 of which goes to the Trump library. That's going to be interesting. And then I guess the rest of it goes into Trump. I mean, there's just a level of corruption. And let me just respond to the immigration thing.
Yes. Well, let me say something about that.
Hold on. Well, one final point on the immigration thing. I agree with you. Americans want action on immigration, and they're willing to tolerate a lot. But the problem is that they talked about, yes, everyone agrees, let's deport criminals. But as we've talked on the show many times, undocumented immigrants commit crimes at the lowest rate of any group. So there's not that many criminals, okay? And already half the people they've deported have no criminal records. Surprise, surprise. So that's why what I said earlier in our show, the American people, be patient, because yes, that there is a level of tolerance that people have, and they do want to crack down on immigration, but they don't want veterans and law-abiding citizens and people that work in their local restaurants and their local meatpacking plants to be deported. So when that starts happening, right now, see, the issue is people will react when it has personal consequences for them. That stuff hasn't happened. Pardoning the January 6th rioters, yeah, most people don't agree with it, but it doesn't affect them personally. Yeah, get rid of the criminals, cut the spending, do this, do that. But eventually this stuff is going to have real people care about Meals on Wheels, and this unconstitutional thing where he just tried to freeze spending. What's the new term they're using? Impounding. It's just absurd. It's blatantly unconstitutional. I know they're just going to try to flout as many things and break as many laws as they can and just say, hey, we'll flood the zone and you'll stop us if you can. And it's actually an effective strategy. As I said, Trump is very shrewd, but he's just lazy, ignorant, and incurious. So another classic example is these tariffs. Okay, so yes, I'm sure he's all proud of himself because he bullied Colombia into accepting these planes worth of migrants. Well, if he thinks that these same tactics are going to work with Canada and Europe, and that they're going to bend the knee, good luck. It's going to be a trade war with our best allies. And then he's talking about putting tariffs on Taiwan because they need to build more chips over here. I mean, it's so ignorant on so many levels. And when you have someone who doesn't read the newspaper, and you have someone who doesn't read his presidential daily brief, has never, frankly, read a book in his life, this is what you end up with. So just be patient. The American people will turn against it. The honeymoon will end.
There's a lot there too, Dave. So on Zuckerberg, let's not forget that he spent more than $400 million, so almost $500 million, to try to, and successfully, get Joe Biden in office. So I'm old enough to remember that, and I'm old enough to remember that I didn't hear.
How did he do that? How did he spend $400 million?
Through his Zucker boxes, through having disproportionate benefit to zip codes that were Democrat leaning, to put his Zucker boxes and push for voter turnout and voter support, and lots of organizations funneling money in Democrat zip codes.
Okay.
And turnout. But
I don't agree with that, but it's not illegal. It's not a legalized bribe. It's just the same thing with when they paid him $15 million for the Stephanopoulos thing, which was a very defendable case. It wasn't ABC, it was Disney. It was Bob Iger saying, "Don't worry, we're on board." And this is what you're seeing. This is what happens in authoritarian countries. It's like, for my friends, everything. For my enemies, the law.
So that's that. There, I hear a double standard when you say, "I don't care that a tech oligarch is favoring one candidate."
It's not what I said.
You just said. You said
No. I said people favor different candidates. I didn't have a problem with Elon Musk spending $250 million to help getting Donald Trump elected. That's illegal. I mean, that's legal. I have no problem with that. I do have a problem with him, trying to, changing policy so he can build an AI plant in China, employing Chinese workers when this is all about American workers. Okay, I do have a problem with that. I have a lot of other problems with things he's done. So again, you're conflating two separate issues here, which I guess you have to do to defend Trump. He's always conflating things.
Look, the thing is, whether I agree with you, those tech billionaires sitting behind him. This is at the end of the day, they just care about the green. That's
exactly.
They're green, but all I'm saying is that there is a level of hypocrisy that I didn't hear a peep from the left concerned about those oligarchs.
Because you haven't had this, you didn't have these people sitting behind Joe Biden.
You keep interrupting me. So, like, for example, the Washington Post is owned by Jeff Bezos. The Washington Post has been incredibly reckless, false, biased. They did a hit job on my organization, the Independent Women's Network. Totally biased. The framing was totally off, inaccurate. They also failed to include scientific studies that were quoted in the letter that they somehow was leaked to them. They put the photo they ran on their front page was this screaming woman who didn't even belong to our organization. It was the level of bias against Donald Trump from the Washington Post, which is owned by Jeff Bezos. I mean, nobody seemed to care about that. And on the left,
yeah, this is the same paper that then didn't endorse him because Bezos told them not to endorse anyone.
Because he saw the direction of where things were, and that's what I'm saying, Dave. Is like when the shoe's on the other foot, the left does not care about.
You're conflating two different issues.
The oligarchs are on your side.
You're conflating two different issues. Nope. I reject that. The different. Let me respond to what you're saying. Okay. Let me explain why I do see a difference, and that is that you didn't have people sitting behind Joe Biden at his inauguration. Let's just take a step back. Hold on. Let me ask. Why are all these tech guys now supporting Trump? And that's a very fair question, because you're right. See, these guys they care about money. They're smart. They realize Donald Trump is transactional. He's not very informed. He's manipulative. If you stroke him, you get what you want. And nothing Donald Trump loves more than money, right? So these guys are rich beyond God. I think they said that the combined net worth of the three tech bros was sitting on the inauguration was literally over $1 trillion for three people. Unbelievable, right? And so, yes, they say Trump is bribable. He cares. So, yes, I agree with you. But nothing like that has ever happened in previous administrations. And there is a chasm of difference between guys going to inauguration and personally having you change policy than your organization supporting people through your platform or giving hundreds of millions of dollars, which Elon Musk, I didn't agree with it, but it's totally illegal. That's his right. That's the campaign finance problem system. If you want to argue it, you don't criticize Elon Musk, but it's a huge difference. So your analogy is totally invalid.
Well, we're going to disagree then, because I think the reason part of why they were there was because they knew they had done wrong. Like it was wrong. It was wrong for all of the fact check, like the fact checkers at Facebook were so leftist. And I'm saying this as a journalist. Like in 2020, I was a journalist and I was working for a conservative news outlet. And we're getting these fact check labels, saying stuff like, oh, you can't make a claim about the COVID origin coming from a lab leak. That's disinformation. We're going to suppress that in the algorithm. They knew what they did was wrong. That's why they were there.
Oh, so yes. So it's all that. This is beautiful. So it's all because of shame. We screwed up. So we have to be good boys. We have to make up and do what's right for the country.
Dave, it's fear.
That's so naive, Carrie.
Dave, it's fear. That's what it is. It's fear.
Yes. This is what happens. This is what happens in autocratic places. You buy off the leader, or else you're feared. It's like the same thing. Let me ask you this: How about revoking security clearance? Revoking security clearance for John Bolton and Mike Pompeo, people that helped you carry out one of your foreign policy successes, the assassination of Soleimani. The Iranian government has a hit on them. Okay, and even Tom Cotton, the chair of the Intelligence Committee, said this is wrong. This is like petty, spoiled little boy who wants to get revenge. I mean, do you agree that he should have pulled security clearance for John Bolton and for Mike Pompeo?
Well, is the threat still there? Because
God, are you ever going to criticize?
Well, I'm asking you,
why
Dave.
Don't you ever criticize? It doesn't matter if the threat's still there. Iran has taken out a hit. They have taken out a hit job on these two guys who helped Trump, achieve his foreign policy goals. But because they criticized him, and Mike Pompeo hardly criticized him, and now he pulls a security clearance. So for once, can you please stop auditioning for Fox? Criticize Donald Trump. It was a terrible thing. Will you at least acknowledge that?
Dave,
even his members of his own party admit it was.
I'm sorry, but you just said that it doesn't matter if the threat's still there. And as a taxpayer, it does.
If the threat is still there. Everyone agrees. Tom Cotton has said the threat is still there. Military people have said the threat is still there. There is a hit that the Iranian government has on these guys. That hit has not been removed. They haven't come out and said, you know what? We're going to get, now that Trump is president, we are going to remove that assassination order. Of course not. So it is still there. If it is still there, which it is, but assuming that it is, should he have pulled their security clearance? Yes or no?
Well, let's see if it.
You won't answer. So frustrating, Carrie. I love you, but you have no credibility when you don't even criticize him on anything.
Dave, I like Mike Pompeo. I actually spoken.
Well, then stick up for him.
I've actually seen it. I've met his security detail. He was speaking right after I was, and they were all around. And I sat at the head of the table with him. I like him a lot. I want him to be safe.
Okay, so then you agree he should not have pulled the detail.
Well, I think. Well, I want to hear what Tom Cotton has to say.
I'm telling you what Tom Cotton said. You can look it up. He said it was a mistake. It shouldn't happen. And by the way, you shouldn't have to have someone tell you. you should, by common sense, you should realize you don't pull people's security detail when they're still under an assassination order just because they criticized you. And that's precisely what Trump did.
Well, look, like I said, I want Mike Pompeo to be safe. I absolutely do.
Well, obviously you don't, or else you would disagree with the president. But you, for some reason, you think that's going to get you struck by lightning if you criticize Trump or you disagree with him. I don't understand. Name one time that you've criticized him. Give me one time. It's like Trump with Putin. You never criticize him. Even Trump isn't perfect.
Dave, anybody who watches the show knows I have disagreed with him.
Okay, when?
Not a perfect person. I'm not a perfect person. We all.
Well, you're not president, and you're a lot more moral than he is.
Well, Dave, we've been going on for half an hour now.
Yes,
this
anyway.
is a long show.
Yes, it has. It is a long show, but it's always done with a smile. And I guess this was just how things will go in the Trump administration. I certainly hope that you will find it within your fortitude at some point to criticize the president, because I can't remember when you have, and not even criticizing him for pulling a security detail on someone that you know, like Mike Pompeo, is a little surprising. But as always, I respect your views, and as you said, we are out of time, sadly. So we will have to, for now, pause it after another very lively but always smile-filled exchange. So thanks so much for joining us, folks. And great to have you with us on Practically Political. As always, I'm Dave Spencer.
And I'm Carrie Sheffield. We'll catch you next time.